guys since 2009.
Oh,
So
awesome. Okay. Yeah, that's a long time.
it feels like it was just yesterday, though, which is amazing. It kind of went and flowed through that, almost 15 years now. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Sometimes when people, when I think about the fact that we've been around in 20 years, a little over 20 years actually, and you look at other bands, from the 80s or 90s, by the time they were around 20 years, they would have split up a couple of times, had a couple of reunion tours, and done that
Right.
really bad grunge album, and
That's right.
so it's
That's
20
right.
years was a lot back then, I feel.
That really was. It really was. And I wanted to kick it off with this new album. I was really excited to see you guys bring this out, Thrill of the Bite. And it drops on February 14th, Valentine's Day. And I thought it was a great follow-up to Street Lethal.
Yeah.
Tell us about this album and how this came about, because it's, like I said, when you guys put something out, I mean, to me, it's almost like epic. It's something that I know I'm going to listen to. I already know what to expect. Tell us about this
Awesome.
one, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you said, it's been quite a while since we did a proper, studio album release. We did do the compilation album about a year ago, but that had, two original songs, a cover, but the rest of them were remakes of old songs. So for the like hardcore fans as yourself, you would have recognized most of the stuff there was on there. So we felt that it was time uh, to release a proper studio album. And actually, by the time that Two Shots of Glory was released, we'd already started working on the next studio album. So that was in the plans for quite a while. And for us, we always want to kind of you know up the ante and go above and beyond the last album. Which maybe is the case why this one took a bit longer, because usually we have about 2 years between releases. This took us a bit longer, but I also feel like there's no point in releasing something just for the sake of it. We really wanted something that would be better in all of the aspects that we could. So that's always the goal for us. I feel like we're still on an upward trajectory and kind of haven't made that career defining album yet, which is strange, as you say, because 20 years in the making. But you have the bands that you can clearly say where they peaked and then they're on their way down basically from there. but
Right.
but there's also the bands where you kind of get excited for all of the new releases, and I kind of miss that time from my youth, when you could feel about
Me
bands
too.
like that.
Right.
Their
Right.
next one is maybe going to be the greatest, because I've lost the hope for a lot of my favorite bands that they'll ever going to have something out that's actually worthwhile. So
That's right.
but we aspire to be that kind of band where it's actually worth checking out the next release as well, and not only cling to the classics that are 10 or 15 years old.
It's cool that you say that too, because you hear that, this band continues to progress. I mean, I remember when I first heard you, obviously, back on the, New Religion, and then coming all the way up until now. You hear
Yeah.
the different sounds, and with this one too, like, songs like Little Miss Dangerous and Call of the Wild, that's textbook, stuff. But, you put out a Hunt for Danger. And what I love
Yeah.
about that one is it reminds me of something that will be on a movie soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that's essential like that. Tell us about that one. And
So I think the reason why that maybe sticks out a bit is, well, first of all, that's a song that Chrissy Olsen, the guitarist, wrote, and I haven't been involved in the songwriting of it. So there, you have one aspect there. It's of course still within the realms of Crazy Lixx very much, but it's also another person's take on what it is. Of course, Chrissy has been in the band since 2015, so he's a long-standing member by now, but still not one of the original songwriters. So then, of course, you have the fact that this is the first production that I've also mixed, because usually what we've done is that I produced the recording of it, but then we've left the mixing for someone else.
right.
And even in the early days, would have an external producer doing the whole thing. So, but on this one, I felt confident to do the mixing myself. So you have a combination of a sound that's more of my own, but also the songwriting that's not me. So I think maybe that combination is an interesting one, and the reason why you say that it sounds fresh and maybe a different take on Crazy Lixx than what you've heard before. So I think as long as the song is good, I don't have a problem with whoever writes it. We've been open to external songwriters as well, and a lot of the
Right?
favorite bands that I have from the 80s and 90s, they've used external songwriters. Um, Actually, some of the songwriters that I look up to the most, like say Desmond Child, for example, he's
Right?
the stuff that he's put out himself isn't very interesting, but the stuff that he's done for other artists is the really good stuff. So
Amazing.
I never close any doors on that. And in this case, it was a song that I wasn't involved in, but I felt straight away that it was a good fit for the album.
It is, and overall, it's really a fantastic album. I mean, like I said, you guys already
Thank you.
have that bar set, and we know as fans, man, as soon as we see the name and what it's
Yeah,
attached to, we have that level of expectation. You guys achieve that every single
yeah, glad
time. I think that's cool.
yeah, glad you say that. We try hard, as I said, to keep that level, because as I said, I don't think that we've reached that ultimate Crazy Lixx album yet. Maybe this is the one. You never know. Maybe it's downhill from here. But until I feel personally that I've done what I can, I want to strive higher. So yeah,
That's great to hear that, from you as an artist too. Because you know that you get into this because you love it. You love the music. You can feel that passion, and that comes
yeah.
across to us as fans as well.
Yeah, it's not a career that I would advise anyone for the sake of money and fame or anything like that, because there's certainly better things to do, both in the realm of music and other stuff. So no, you really have to be into it
Exactly.
and love it. And I think it shines through if you don't. It'll be very obvious to the people who listen to you if you don't do it because of the love of it. So
Totally
yeah,
agree. Totally agree. Like I said earlier, I feel that this band is top tier in this genre. You know, and what's it like in the studio or the recording process for Crazy Lixx album? Because, like I said, you've been working together and with some of these guys for a while, and what's the process like now? I mean, I'm sure it's smooth, but it has to be exciting for you as well to get in there and man, bring some new stuff out.
I think people assume that it's going to look a lot like it did back in the day, and of course, budget wise, we can't afford the big studios and the kind of $1 million consoles and the stuff that they had back in the day. We still
Right?
try to emulate that kind of sound, but the process is quite different. So actually, the further along we've come, the more divided we are when doing the production. So we will do a lot of the stuff remotely, and I think it's just because it's come to a time where we know how to do it ourselves. So you have the guitarists recording their stuff, sending it over. I do a lot of that stuff with backing vocalists, for example, people that I've never met physically, but we have a guy in the US and we have one in the UK, and I'll send them parts, they'll record it in their studio, and I'll bring it all together. So
Cool.
I think a lot of the productions today are done a lot more remotely than you would think. So there's not much time hanging out in the studio setting anymore. First of all, because you move away from the physical gear a lot, so there's no point in meeting in a studio really.
Right?
Um,
Right?
but also the fact that we don't live all that close together, so it's often more easy to find the time and the um, to do it yourself, and you can also really grind your stuff if you do it like that. Like no one's going to sit and watch you make us play the same solo for 3 hours, but if you're alone you
Right?
can do that and just send me the best one that you think you had. So
Right?
um, I think it's a combination of the technological means to do it, but also the fact that there's not much money in it, so you can't do it like you did back in the day. So the studio experience is quite different from what I think people assume when looking at in movies and stuff like that.
Right. They have that look of, rock stars in the studio and sweating it out
Yeah,
and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and drinking their whiskey and
That's it.
doing their cocaine. Yeah, not a lot of that anymore.
What's the songwriting process for you, Danny? I mean, is it an idea, a riff, a chorus? Because the things that you put together, I mean, with the choruses for these songs, I'm like, it just seems like you take it to the next level every time I listen. I'm like, oh shit, this is
Awesome. Yeah.
unreal, man.
Well, for me personally, it usually starts with a hook. So something lyrical and something in the melody department, and it usually revolves around the chorus. So people will listen to a song from the start and the verse and the pre-chorus and the chorus, but maybe don't realize that oftentimes it's built actually from the chorus and back, which is the case for me as well. So once I feel like I have that chorus, that's the point where I feel that it's worth writing all the other stuff around. So I will have, hundreds of chorus ideas that I just never do anything from because I feel like they don't really cut it. I may return to them later, maybe redo them, and maybe actually find out that they have something extra, or even someone else in the band might pick up some stuff and do something of it. But usually it starts with that chorus, and once I feel that okay, this is a strong chorus enough, that's where I start to work the other stuff around it. Because for me it's always been about, well, I wouldn't say the chorus necessarily, but some kind of hook. For me it's usually a lyrical hook, but you can have songs like, say Jump or Final Countdown, for example. They just shout the title of those songs, but there's another, there's a keyboard riff in that case. So there has to be something that captures, the attention of the listener. And I usually build around that first, and then the rest of it comes. But I know people that write the lyrics first and then the song around that. That's never been the case for me. I don't really know
Right.
how to do it that way. So but yeah, I guess it
That's
differs. But
cool.
for me, it's always been, and it can come at really strange times. I could just be out walking the dog or whatever, something pops up in the head, and
Right.
I have to run, pick up the phone, even sometimes record just a quick idea before I forget it.
Right.
So yeah, it's always there, I guess.
That's great. When you have it, you have it. You know,
Yeah, I guess.
you guys, this band, when I think of Crazy Lixx, you guys are the true torch carrier, for the 80s rock. I mean, bringing it now. And I think about that, that massive in your face power and the formula to put all this together. What do you think Crazy Lixx would have been like in 1984? I think about this. I'm like, oh man, this band would have been massive.
Yeah, I thought about it a lot, and I get this question a lot as well. I
Sure.
think unfortunately, the way that I'm wired, because I'm very caught up in my own childhood, I would say. So when it comes to, music and aesthetics and movies and computer games or whatever, the stuff that I kind of experienced when I was a kid, that's the stuff that I keep with me, and I always have the warmest feelings about.
Right.
So chances are that I would have been the same about 60s music in the 80s, where I would have
Right.
banged my head against the wall, and when everyone was doing hair metal, I would, no, Beatles is the one I want to do, or like
Right.
the
Right.
early Black Sabbath or whatever. So the music I make now, sure, it probably would have been popular in the 80s, but maybe I personally would have just been very conservative about what I was brought up with. So chances are maybe I would still just be like a fringe genre that wasn't very popular anymore. Um, but I do get what
Cool.
they say when they say that the songs that we've made now surely would have had a bigger impact back in the day. But then again, I'm a result of my inspirations as well, and my all of the stuff that I've listened to. So without those, who knows what I would have been able to write even.
I think it's great that you transcend, genres and time too, because there's just so much of a lot of the same thing, especially the last 20 years. People doing the same thing. The production is the same.
Yeah.
The flow of the music's the same. So it's nice to see somebody doing something that's, I'm not going to say totally outside the box, but it's different and it's in a good modern way too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you wait long enough, the old stuff becomes fresh again. I have high hopes for the new generation because we had 20 years now basically where you had hip hop and rap music and you know R&B dominating the mainstream, even
Right.
in Sweden as well. But I feel like the only way to rebel against your parents' generation is actually listening to something that they hate and despise. So that would have
That's
probably
right.
been rock. So I
Yeah.
hope that the kids maybe now will grow up and become, maybe you'll have your punks and your rockers and your, your grunge people
Right.
or your goths or whatever, but just something else would have been nice. Now, if they will listen to us or just think that we're boomer music, that's another thing. But I surely hope that the rock can make a resurgence again.
I hope so. We're starting to see it a little bit. I mean, it seems like it's creeping up slowly, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's on the way. So that's a good thing. And I wanted to talk about the early days when you guys formed. I mean, obviously Loud Minority, but 2002 to 2007, Loud Minority came out. And I was an instant fan, like I said, with New Religion,
yeah,
with those albums, and obviously 21 Till I Die and Children of the Cross. But one of my favorites is Lock Up Your Daughter. That's always been a
yeah,
standout to me. Tell us
yeah,
about the start of this band and those early days, man. It seems like it's forever ago, I'm sure.
yeah. Um, I mean, I we were in so me, Joel, the former drummer who just quit a year ago, and the guitarist who is now in Hardcore Superstar and has been since 2008, I believe. We were in another band, in a metal band together, um, and we did some gigs and we recorded some demos, but I always felt that it wasn't really my thing. And I wanted to do something that was more closely related to the stuff that I'd been growing up with.
Right.
And I know that Vic, the guitarist, he also felt like that. So parallel with that band, I actually started up the idea with Crazy Lixx, and then the three of us, ended up in the band. This was in 2001, I think the first concepts of it came about. And at this time, you had your new metal, you had your melodic death metal. The Gothenburg sound had just started to become really big in Sweden. A lot of the rock music was depressive and quite focused on the dark sides of it. And
Right.
we didn't know if there was going to be an audience for this at all. Like this wasn't even very long after the genre had died out, because you basically had, a decade more or less since
Right.
it was the
Right.
mainstream genre.
Right.
So when we started doing this, people looked quite strangely at us for the fact that we want to revive something that they were, oftentimes honestly glad it was over. But what we found out was if we traveled a bit, we started playing in Stockholm, in the capital of Sweden, and we found that there was a like a resurgence for this kind of music there as well. And you had, of course, Crash Diets, who were in the forefront of this, and they were
Right.
in 2005 they got signed by Universal, one of the last rock bands actually in Sweden to get signed by a major company for their first debut album. And um, and they released Rest in Sleaze in 2005, and that's when we knew that, okay,
Great album.
this is this is very, very good, and this is going to be a big thing. And surely enough, just a year after, we were on the Sweden Rock Festival, which up to that point had been, your power metal fans and your like death metal fans and stuff, but suddenly you would see all of those sleaze people, a lot of girls suddenly showing up at the festival, which hadn't been the case in the past.
Right. Right.
So we felt like, yeah, there is something here. Sure, there is an audience for this, and it's not just us. Someone else wants this, and they miss this. The kind of fun-loving rock and roll, something to be happy and party to, and not slit your wrists to.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so by that time we knew that we had something good going on, and that's when we started working, I would say, hard from 2005 and onward. Before that time we played local shows and did some demos and stuff, but we were quite slow in the start. So
Right.
and as you say, 2007, that was when we released our first album. That was on a independent label at that time, and we got to go on a supporting tour with Hardcore Superstar in the UK, which was also our first big setback, because at the end of that tour, our original guitarist Vixie, decided to join Hardcore Superstar, who had just lost their guitarist. So
Right.
it set us back a while, but then we came back stronger again for New Religion, which I think was the big break for us, that took that international step, because up to that point we had been a Swedish band first and foremost, but
Right.
from that time and onward, I would say we toured more abroad than we have in Sweden.
That's a great story to hear that, behind the scenes and thinking about those albums, because it got you. to where you're at right now. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I wanted to bring up Riot Avenue. Like Riot
yeah,
Avenue, I know that was, kind of like a different, more raw sound, but
yeah,
man, that was a great album. I loved it because I think it shows the diversity in Crazy
yeah,
Lixx. And obviously Riot Avenue, the title track and Young Blood. But my
yeah.
favorite song on this one is Only the Dead Know. I
Oh yeah,
love
yeah.
absolutely love that song. Tell us about and the backstory about that. That's a great, great song. Um,
Uh,
all the
People
way through.
assume that it's yeah. People assume that it's autobiographical some way, but it's not. So it's not something that I've experienced myself. It's quite a sad lyrical story, of course, but it is I would say secondhand. It's a combination of stories that I've heard other people experience. So even if I haven't experienced a spouse or partner, taking their own life in that way, but I of course came across it with others. So it's quite a heavy theme around the lyrics, and I think that's what gives it a special feel to the song as well. The whole album is a bit of a divider because I do hear a lot of people who actually have it as their favorite album. I personally feel like we could have, done a much better job when it comes to the production of the actual thing. Um, but it was also in a way was a very good step for us because this was the first time that we attempted the production ourselves. Up to that point, we had used Chris Laney as the producer for the albums,
Right.
but this time we tried it ourselves, and there's a lot of things that I would have done differently, but it was also a very good way to kind of it was a good lesson in what you should and shouldn't do when it comes to music production. So I don't think I would be where I am if we hadn't attempted that on that album. But in retrospect, I feel like a lot of the songs deserved better, which is also the reason why a lot of them ended up on the compilation album and got a second chance, I think.
Right.
Well, both because of the sound of it, but also because of the fact that a lot of the newer fans, that have joined from say Rough Justice and onward, they were just not familiar with those songs. And just as you say, I feel like a lot of the songs were strong songs and good songs that were deserved to be heard. So, and Only the Dead Know, of course, was the one of the ones that we chose to re-release on that album as well.
I think when you hear, that song and I think that the part that stands out for me is how you deliver that lyrically. Because there's a passion there, there's a strength that comes across. And I think that really shows, you're a different side of you as a vocalist.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, in a way, I think um, I reached a new level in a way on that album. I think it's probably the highest notes I ever sing are on that album as well, even to this day.
Right.
So I always felt like I struggled a bit in the studio on New Religion, and especially on the first album, Loud Minority. And those were done in the way that you would do the albums back in the day. So I had 2 or 3 days to record all of the vocals, including the backing vocals. And you would have to be on top of your game when you were in the studio because the studio time was expensive. So, and I never felt like that way to do it was a good way for me. So for the Riot Avenue album, I actually bought gear and my trusted, SM7 that I still sing into to this day.
Nice.
Uh, and I started recording my own vocals without anyone in the room and just did it until I was happy with the results. So no matter if it took me, 3 days for the same song or whatever, if I redid the same phrase 50 times or even returned to a small part of the song later and try to redo it. And I think maybe that's what comes across in the album, the fact that I just had more time to put into it and sing when I felt like I was in a good place to sing and not
Right.
stressed out in the studio and you have to make it in 2 days. So I would recommend everyone to work like that if you have the luxury to do it. But from the point where I've done that, I've always done that now on every album from that time onward.
To deliver your best. I totally see that, man, because that stress is a tough thing,
Yeah, it
especially
is.
trying to get to that
It is.
point.
Yeah.
You're vocalist, you as a vocalist, you stayed so consistent over these years. And I think it's, that you could hear the progression as a fan, you getting better. obviously. Is there anything special that you do to keep your voice strong? Is it one of those things you just go out there and nail it? How does that work with you?
I've, I've had ups and downs. I've had periods where I could certainly feel, like pretty long periods. I would say a couple of years ago, like pre-COVID, right between the albums of Forever Wild and Street Lethal, uh, there was a time where I felt like, okay, I'm on the decline now. I'm getting too old, and my voice will start getting worse from here, and I'll be, Bon Jovi anytime soon.
Right?
But I don't know if it was the fact that we did a long break there during the COVID, because we didn't play live for a full year, a little more than a full year actually. Um, or just the fact that I used to smoke more back in the day. I used to drink around the touring. So even when I came home from that, that wasn't a very good idea. It's not a good way to take care of your voice. And when you're young, you can kind of
Right.
do that stuff and get away with it. But
Right.
I think there comes a time when it's just um, so maybe I take care of my voice a bit better now. I don't sing all that much, to be honest. We apart from the stuff that I record and the rehearsal that we do with the band, but that usually comes up to quite a lot in a week. So I can do, when I'm producing an album, I will sing all the backing vocals for them, for example. So you get a lot of
Right.
training there. Uh, I think just general fitness is good to have as well as a singer. So I play football twice a week, or soccer, as you would say. So
That's cool.
Not the American kind, but really try to like if I go to a gym, I can't ever really get pumped about it and waste all my energy in it. But when I'm chasing a ball and competing against someone else,
Right.
that's
Right.
where
I
I can
see that.
I like that competitive edge of it. Um, so when I'm all sweaty afterwards, that's really good for your lungs as well. Just running after a ball twice a week. So I try to do that consistently now. Whereas when I was younger, I wouldn't work out much at all. So I think all of that helps. The older you get, the kind of more you have to think about these things to maintain the
Right.
level that you have. Yeah.
That's right. That's great to hear that. And you're keeping that course. You're staying up there. Hey, what I wanted to say, in ending, I know we don't have a whole lot of time left. What I wanted to say is how much I really appreciate what you do. Not only as a vocalist, but as a songwriter and what this band does, because it, and I wanted to thank you for this too, for doing what you do, for putting this music out and for sticking with it for so long, because it makes life so much better for the
Oh,
fans.
thanks, man.
It's really from the heart, and thanks for doing what you're doing. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much. And of course, a big thanks to you and all of the fans that listen to it. As I said, when we started, we didn't even know if anyone would be interested in this. And, we could have chosen so many other paths, even within the metal genre, just to be more famous or more successful. But
Right,
just the fact that there's fans still sticking around with this genre and, listening to us and buying the merch and everything, that means the world to us. We've been a struggling band for quite a while, and I don't, maybe people don't realize this, but still to this day, a lot of the band members are not full-time musicians, because that's just the reality of the music industry uh, these days. I've
right.
I've just recently started, doing this full time. So all the contributions help, and without the fans and without people streaming and buying and going to the shows, it would never been possible. So we're very thankful that someone sticks around and wants to listen to the stuff that we do.
That's great to hear, and we'll be here forever with you, man. There's no doubt. Hey, and I wanted to
Thanks, man.
say congratulations and best of luck with Thrill of the Bite too. February 14th, Frontiers Records. This is a great
Yeah,
album, everybody. Really, just listen to it and follow these guys. Make sure you support them. And Danny, I wish you the best, man. I
thank you
really
very
do.
much. Thanks, man.
Best of luck with the album, and you have an open invite here to this show. Like I said, I'm a huge fan.
Awesome.
Anything you guys do, you got the support forever, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure.
Thanks,
See you
Danny.
around, man.
Take care, man.
Thanks.
I'll see you.
Bye.